Hi, this is Your Money Matters on NDTV Profit and my name is Alex Matthew. On the show today, we're discussing a tie-up between the Securities and Exchange Board of India and DigiLocker. Of course, DigiLocker is the digital wallet that stores your identification proofs and now also your financial information like your demat account as well as your mutual fund investments. We're talking about how you can nominate somebody to access that information and why this is such an important step. In the second part of the show, because it's April Fool's Day today, we're talking about how a lot of people are falling prey to scamsters. What should you be careful about and what should you do and not do if you have fallen prey to such a scam? Let me introduce my first expert for today. We've got Roongta, who's the founder of Fee-Only Investment Advisors. Thanks so much, Harsh, for taking the time. Let's talk about what this tie-up is, what has been announced, and why is this so important?
So, just a quick background on DigiLocker. DigiLocker today has 50 crore Indians using it. I'm just repeating that number. There are 50 crore Indians who are already using DigiLocker. They are using their exam certificates, because what does DigiLocker do? It takes the documents from source. If it is your exam certificate or your degree certificate, it will take it from the educational institution directly. And therefore, when it is passed on, it's an authenticated document that is passed on. And you pass on that document, but when you pass it on to somebody, they know it is authenticated because it is not just something uploaded on a some kind of a digital drive. It is something that has come from the source. It can be your driving license, it can be your Aadhaar, it can be your PAN card, it can be bank accounts, it can be mutual funds now, okay, or your demat accounts, etc. So when you forward that, to whomsoever you have forwarded knows that this is information that has come from, as far as the securities market is concerned, from KFintech or CAMS or NSDL or CSDL. So that is the big thing that already existed. I think the important thing that has happened now is that you will be able to provide a nominee for that account, whatever. So if I open that account with DigiLocker, and I definitely will, then I can have a nominee who will be, and already within the SEBI ecosystem, there is a centralized death claim reporting that is already happening, right? If you report the death of a loved one to one entity within the securities market, it is automatically broadcasted to every entity that has consumed that PAN.
Yes.
Now that same broadcast will happen to DigiLocker as well. And when it happens to DigiLocker, what DigiLocker will do then, and that is the importance of the tie-up, is that DigiLocker will automatically inform the named nominee that, this is what we have got, and, take the next steps. And the nominee will be able to download the entire thing from the DigiLocker.
Okay.
So I think unclaimed assets are a very big thing in India. We've roughly about 1,60,000 crores worth of unclaimed assets.
Wow, 1,60,000,
1,60,000. So you have about 85,000 crores of unclaimed shares itself.
First of all, it's absolutely imperative for you to go onto that application and to add a nominee. There's no point if there is no nominee, then that notification will not go through. It's a very simple process where you simply have to put their name, their number, their Aadhaar number, and essentially their mobile number, key details, and then you can add a nominee. But Harsh, here's the clarification that I want. This is obviously solving for a problem where your nominee does not know what financial assets you have, or your dependent or somebody that is going to inherit from you does not know your financial assets, and they will now know. But then there's a few more steps that need to be done in order for them to get that money. One, of course, is nomination in those assets themselves, and the other most important thing is a will, isn't it?
So absolutely. So as far as movable assets are concerned, Alex, nomination is good enough to give the ability to pass on those assets. They will get transferred based on the nomination on the asset, not the nomination on the DigiLocker, right? If each of, suppose you are holding some mutual funds, you are holding some shares in a demat account, okay, then based on the nomination, those will be transferred to the nominee. Assets will get transferred to the nominee. The shares will get transferred, the mutual fund units will get transferred. But the nominee holds it in trust for the legal owner. So if the nominee is the legal owner, for example, if I sort of die, I leave it to my wife. I have a will where I leave it to my spouse, and she's also the nominee. In which case, if those were the only assets, she may not even have to sort of need the will, okay, unless there is a dispute with my, so the other heirs would be my children. Unless there is a dispute with the children, there would not be any need for a will. Will should be made always. I'm just saying that there may not be need, at least to get transfer of the asset and begin using them if there is no dispute. So I think nomination is the crux, at least as far as movable assets are concerned, whether they be securities, mutual fund units, AIFs, PMS, anything that you hold, nomination is the key. Bank accounts, same thing applies to bank accounts, same thing applies to insurance. None of them need a will to transfer if there is a nominee there. They are allowed to transfer it to a nominee
Yeah.
without insisting on any other document at all.
Okay. Now, we're speaking at a time when a lot of people have chosen not to nominate. And of course, this is perhaps old news because that came through a while back and that continues to be prevalent today, Harsh. In the event that there is no nominee, can you explain what happens in that the mutual fund simply cannot transfer those units and it gets stuck, doesn't it?
So, I mean, non-nominating is being very irresponsible in my view, and that applies to young people as much as it applies to not so young people. But very clearly, so very interestingly, if you look at the demat accounts in mutual funds, I mean, the figures were released by SEBI in a consultation paper. Uh, in mutual funds, I think more than 90% of the accounts have nominees. I think even in demat accounts, where they are joined, they have nominees. Reasonably, I don't remember the percentage. It is the single demat accounts that does not have nominees for about 70% of the single accounts. And that is something that is really worrying. And it seems that these are demat accounts that have been opened in the last 4 or 5 years, primarily for trading, because we have had an explosion of demat accounts. And the sole reason why the nomination has not been made is that it is a little more painful to make a nomination than just say that I don't want to nominate. Uh, so I think it should be made a little more difficult to say that I don't want to nominate, so that people are aware of what the consequences of not nominating are. You asked about that. Let me elaborate. When there is no nomination, the mutual fund or the demat depository participant cannot transfer automatically. It will need some sort of a legal heir certificate, succession certificate, probate of a will, unless the amount is below 5 lakhs. If the amount is below 5 lakhs, then based on indemnities, etc., it can be done. But if the amount is more than 5 lakhs, you will need a separate paper. So you are condemning uh, your family members to do a lot of running around. The good thing is that if the nominee exists, then the process, at least in the securities market, had been made crystal clear. There are only two documents that can be asked. One is a death certificate. Two are the PAN number of the deceased person, Okay. And third is basically the KYC documentation or reaffirmation of the KYC documentation of the nominee themselves.
Yeah.
Other than that, no other document can be asked under any circumstances that is clear from a SEBI circular.
Okay.
And timelines have been laid down. So I think if the nominee is there, the process, and there is personal experience that I can share that the transmission, it is called transmission when it is transferred from the deceased person's name to the nominee's name. Transmission can happen in matter of literally hours. We have had cases where it has happened in 48 hours. And 5 to 7 days is the norm. Okay. The mutual fund is working fine. The securities market still has some old practices, but I'm sure that will get very streamlined because the SEBI circular is very clear. So I think nominating somebody is making sure that your loved ones get access to your assets easily without having to run from pillar to post. And second, nominating somebody on the DigiLocker ensures that that person comes to know about all the assets that you have and that you might have missed, informing the respective nominees.
Yeah, and this is a very critical part of the entire process because the emotional trauma, of course, that you are facing as somebody that is inheriting when that does take place is enough of a burden. This is perhaps lessening the burden to a certain extent. Thanks so much, Harsh, for joining in and for putting all of this in perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.